Hey guys, it's Bethany, your crafty BFF, and I am on today with another up close and personal craft with me slash tutorial. One of the reasons I started my YouTube channel is because I wanted to help newer crafters learn how to do all of the things that I found challenging when I started crafting. And one of the things that I know intimidates a lot of people, even seasoned crafters, are shakers. So, shaker embellishments. So, today I am going to go over the two types of dies um, that are meant to make shaker embellishments, tell you how to cut them, what to cut each die out of, and all that good stuff, and then how I find it easiest to assemble them. Now, everyone makes shakers differently, and there's no right or wrong way, but I'm just going to show you the ways that I have found it to be the easiest for me to understand and remember without having to, watch a tutorial over and over again, if that makes sense. So I have these little mitten shaker embellishments that I made last night, and I have two more of these. Um, and this is okay. So this is the first type of shaker die that I've come across, and it has this thinner piece with the cutting edge here, and then it has this thicker piece with the cutting edge as well. So I call this the one with the thicker edge is called, I call it the background piece. Okay, so you're gonna anything that you need to be one solid piece is what you're gonna cut with this die. So I always cut a cardstock base layer. I use 110 pound, but 65 will do if you don't have 110. I just like my embellishments to be really solid. Then you cut out your plain cardstock base. You cut out your designer paper, the paper you want the image in the background to be, and then you also cut out this piece with your acetate, if that makes sense. So any piece that needs to be one solid piece, you cut out with the thicker die. Now with this smaller die, you don't cut anything out with just this die, okay? You have to, usually they come like this, welded together, but you have to take them apart in order to make the whole um, embellishment, right? So they come welded together like this, and this is how you're gonna, what I do is I have this Crafter's Essential Easy C tape. You can use washi tape as well, but all you do is take a piece and you line this up to make a frame. I typically just do one piece, but for today's video, we're going to do two so that you can see best way to keep it in place. And you see this way it makes a frame. So it's going to, instead of cutting out one solid piece like this, when you place it like this, it's going to cut this out. Okay? Oops, sorry, I'm already knocking the camera. So you cut out all of these all your solid piece layers first. I find that to get those out of the way, and then tape the two pieces together and keep them together. And then I cut out, with this one, I cut out a layer of plain cardstock. So this is 110 pound cardstock. Like I said, 65-pound cardstock will do. I do this because foam and acetate don't like to glue together, and while it does mean more die cutting, it also means that you're going to have less issues assembling the embellishment. So I cut out this layer in plain cardstock as well. And then I cut out my foam piece. A word of advice: when you do cut out your foam, only roll it through your machine one time. Don't roll it back and forth. Don't try to cut it. It only needs one roll, and the foam will cut all the way through. And if you do it more than once, what happens is your foam flattens, and then it loses its shape and can get all bent, and then it's not going to fit the other pieces that you've cut out, right? So only roll it through one time. And lastly, with this little frame piece that you've taped together, you'll cut out either designer paper or a specialty paper, whatever you want the frame around the embellishment to be. Today I've cut this out in some shimmer white gold cardstock. You can see on these I used pink glitter cardstock as my frame. So there is that. And before we move on to the other kind of shaker die that is on the market, we're going to go ahead and assemble this one of these, okay? So what I like to do first is glue my plain cardstock layer to my designer paper layer so that I have a nice solid base. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just adding my glue, and then I'm going to line it up. And we have a nice solid base layer for our embellishment. The next thing I do is glue my foam to this solid base layer. So having a precision tip on your glue bottle is my best piece of advice for this. You want to make sure that you have a thin but solid layer all the way around, because you don't want your sequins slipping out anywhere there's no glue, because if there's no glue, it's not going to stick, right? So a thin but solid line all the way around the embellishment. And then you're going to take your foam and just carefully place it down, lining it up the best you can. If you need to make some adjustments, you can. I just carefully tap, pick it up, and adjust it anywhere I need to before the glue dries. Foam can be tricky to play with, so I think that's one of the reasons people get so intimidated by shakers, is because of the foam. So there we have it. Look, it tried to slip over on me because the glue's not completely dry yet. So while that dries, I like to set something heavy, usually the sequins mix that I've already mixed up. I'm just going to set that on top of there so that it has something heavy pressing down on it to get that glue to really stick to both layers. While that is drying, I'm going to move this to the side. While that is drying, what I will do is glue my acetate to the frame that I've cut out in specialty cardstock. So like I said, I cut this one out in that white shimmer paper, but this one I cut out in the gold glitter paper. You can totally just do another designer paper. It's just up to you what you want your frame to look like. So I'm going to take my acetate and clean it off the best I can. You know, everything sticks to it, so and mine are never perfect, but you can't tell from afar, so you know. I'm going to take my shirt here and just wipe it off. Try to get the smudges off from my fingers. And that's about as good as it's going to get. You can see there's still stuff on it, but it's acetate. It's super fussy, and just for the sake of the video, I'm not super worried about it. So I'm going to take my specialty or designer paper frame layer. I'm going to flip it over to the back, and again I'm going to add my glue with my precision tip, and I'm going to add a solid but thin line all the way around. You don't want a lot of glue because it will seep out onto the acetate. And while barely arts and art glitter glue do eventually dry clear on acetate, I've seen it take days to finally dry. So I try to just be careful, doing a solid line all the way around, a thin solid line. Because again, you don't want your sequins escaping through anywhere there's no glue. Okay, my best tip for this part is to not lay your acetate down as soon as you get done putting the glue on. Wait a minute or so. You can fuss with your acetate some more, trying to clean it off the best you can. Whatever, just wait, I'd say like 30 seconds to a minute before you lay your acetate down so that the glue starts to get tacky. Because if you try to lay it down when it's still super wet and has no tack, that's when it starts sliding around and gets super messy. So while I've been talking, it's been getting tacky, and I got a little bit too much right there, so I tried to get some of that off, and I'm just going to hold this down with on the very, very edge with just the very tip of my finger, and I'm going to carefully lay this down, trying to line it up as best as I can. This does take practice to master. I'm still not great at it, see? Especially when I'm trying to multitask and talk at the same time. But then I just go around the edge and just tap with my finger to get the glue to start the somewhat tacky glue to start to adhere to the acetate. Yeah, I do have some seepage down here, but I will try to clean that up. In fact, hold on. I'm going to use usually I would have a cloth or something here, but I forgot to get one today, so I'm using my shirt. It's an old shirt, don't worry. Okay. And then if you get glue on your fingers and you touch anywhere on the acetate, it will show up. Lord, acetate is so fussy. Yeah, I'm going to have to clean this off a little better because I got glue on the tip of my finger. I'm being a little fussy over it, but not as fussy as I normally would be, okay? For the sake of the video. Okay, here we go. That's as good as it's going to get right now. My acetate is adhering to my frame piece that I cut out in the specialty paper. And I'm going to go ahead and take my the first piece we were working on with the foam and switch it and just set this heavy sequence mix on top of that one while it dries. So here we have the base layer attached to the foam, and this is where that third frame that we cut out in the regular solid color cardstock is going to come in. We're going to glue it right here on top of the foam. And like I said, I do this because trying to glue this acetate directly onto this foam, the two materials are both slick and they don't like to adhere to each other. So I make my life a little bit easier and just use and cut out another piece in the solid color cardstock. And then the acetate is adhering to the cardstock and the cardstock is adhering to the foam. And like I said, it just makes my life a little bit easier. So here I'm adding a thin solid line all around the back side of the frame because I'm going to lay it down on top of the foam. Again, you don't want any gaps where the sequins can leak out, but you don't want too much glue either because it will seep onto your acetate. Well, I guess you don't really got to worry about it on your acetate right now because there's no acetate yet. So disregard that, but still, I say thin and continuous is the way to go. And I'm just lining this up on top of the foam. Like so. And that gives a nice layer for the acetate to attach to. I'm going to set that there and let that dry, and I'm going to get a drink real quick. Okay. I have like chronic dry mouth. It's crazy. It's from the medicines that I'm on. But anyways, I digress. Okay. Once this layer is nice and dry, now we're going to add our sequins. This is a mix that I mixed up. It's got sequins and seed beads and diamond dots and those little pink shaker balls from the Happy Crafter shop. And I got my little spoon, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a nice mix of the colors. Don't want too much. This mix I made for the Simple Stories Winter Wonder collection because that's what I'm playing with right now. And so I'm gonna get about this much and put it in. You don't want to oversaturate your shaker, but you don't want too little either. So I think that's about good. Also, it helps if you don't overdo it with the sequins because this next part gets to be a little tricky. If you, I do it all the time where I like I accidentally bump something and then the sequins goes everywhere and it gets on the glue and it's a whole ordeal. So I'm going to try to be very careful and just use a couple of my fingers to keep it in place while I add a thin but solid line of glue all the way around the edge once again. I'm sure there are plenty of shaker tutorials out there in YouTube land, but I know that I, for one, have a lot of newer crafters who follow me, and so, like I said, one of the reasons I wanted to start my YouTube channel was to help newer crafters, and so why not? Shakers are definitely challenging at times and intimidating, but they don't have to be. Also, I said this in my last little tutorial video, if you're watching on your phone, did you know that during a video you can, sorry, knocked the camera again. You can pinch the screen of your phone to zoom in and get a better look at things. I like to add that in just in case you didn't know. So now my glue is there, and just like the last time we were adding acetate, I like to let the glue start to get a little tacky before I set my piece down because this is where it can get messy and glue can get all over the acetate. So I'm going to just wait a few more seconds and fuss with this acetate some more, trying to clean it off better while that glue starts to set and get tacky. If it's fresh out of the bottle and super wet, it's going to slide everywhere. So do yourself a favor and just wait 30 seconds to a minute before you start to set your acetate down. So here is my acetate layer with my specialty paper frame on it, and I am going to, as carefully as possible, set this down straight on top of the foam, like so. It actually looks pretty good. Usually I don't get that lucky. And so now I'm just going to put some pressure on it all the way around so that that glue starts to adhere to both sides. And once I've put pressure all the way around, I will set my sequin mix back on top to let it dry. Okay, so we've done it. Do not, I repeat, do not attempt to shake it until it's set for at least a few minutes. There's glue that you can't see that seeps through, and it takes just the littlest tiny drop of glue for your sequins to stick to it, and then your sequins don't shake. They just sit there stuck to the glue. So do not shake it until it's sat and dried for at least a few minutes. And while that dries, let's move on to the second type of shaker die that I've seen. This is also a KS Craft die. This is the watering can die, and this set, you don't have to tape anything together. They've done you the favor of giving you the full frame. So let me show you in comparison to this mitten. So when you tape it together, you give it the two cutting edges, right, to give you the frame. This die already comes as a frame, and you can always tell when it's a really thick piece, like all the way around. So that's how you know it's a frame and you don't have to tape anything together. This is the background piece. So instead of it being two pieces that you take apart, they've given you the frame and the background piece separately, which I wish they made all dies like this, but you know, I can't do anything about it. It would just make life a lot easier because you wouldn't have to tape them together and make sure they're just the right distance apart to make the frame and all that good stuff. So let's start with the background piece, which is it does not have the frame. You see the two cut lines. This has two cut lines, this one, and then this just has the one cut line. So that's how you know it's the background piece. With the background piece, you're going to cut your acetate. You're going to cut your designer paper that you want your background, the background of your shaker to be, and then you're going to cut out your solid color cardstock, which is optional, but it makes your embellishments a lot more sturdy. With the frame piece, once again, you're going to cut out your specialty paper that you want your top frame to be, like the pink glitter paper here. I used gold foil for this one. You're going to cut out your foam pieces with the frame piece. And last but not least, you're going to cut out your solid color cardstock, because once again, acetate and foam do not like to stick to each other, and it makes our lives easier. Okay. So this is basically the same process, but I figured why not do it twice, and so you can see it twice, just uh, for the sake of being thorough. And some people need it explained more than once. So here we go. The first step that I do is glue my designer paper, my solid background piece in designer paper, to my solid piece in solid color cardstock to give myself a very sturdy base to work on. And see, it's nice and sturdy. There we go. Next, I'm going to glue my foam frame to my base piece. So I'm flipping the foam over to the back side, and I'm just adding my glue in a thin solid line all the way around. And onto the handle and onto the spout, because it needs to all stick to the base. But the frame is the most important part, with the solid continuous line. Thin solid continuous line. Look, I've got some globs down here, but it's not as important on this piece as it is for the acetate. So we're going to go ahead and add this. Add the foam to the base piece. Make sure it's nice and lined up, because foam can be finicky. And there we have it. See there, that glob glue did seep out a little bit, but as long as it dries before we add our sequins, we will be okay. Okay, so our mitten has fully dried, and you can see the sequins aren't coming out. As long as you do that thin continuous line all the way around, you have yourself a nice little shaker embellishment. Lovely. Okay, let's get back to this guy. While this layer dries, I'm going to set my sequins mix on top. I'm actually going to use a different sequin mix for this, because for my watering cans, I'm using the Rainbow Avenue collection by Celeste Gonzalez, and I have this little springy mix that I've made over here. Okay, next step is to glue your acetate to your specialty cardstock frame. This is the piece that's going to go on top of your embellishment. I'm trying to get all the little fuzzies off of my acetate here. Everything sticks to it. You know what I forgot to do? Okay, we're going to make sure we do it for this one. I didn't add my little powder tool. But it's okay, because this one really isn't staticky. Sometimes they get really staticky, and this sequence right here is sticking to the acetate because it's so staticky. But I'm going to show you how to prevent that with the powder tool. I got this from it's EK Tools. I think I got it from Hobby Lobby, but Hobby Lobby doesn't sell it anymore. But this thing lasts forever, and all it is baby powder. It smells just like baby powder. Okay, take your frame piece and flip it upside down, and we're going to add our thin line of glue all the way around our frame, so the sequins cannot escape. Again, this part is the important part, not to get too much glue because you don't want it seeping out all over your acetate. Now we do have to add glue to the handle and the spout of this little watering can because the acetate is one solid piece. Before I lay my acetate down, oh look, I have a couple little places down here that doesn't have glue, so I'm going to fix that. And before I lay the acetate down, I'm going to wait 30 seconds to a minute to let that glue start to get tacky. Because again, if it's super wet, the acetate will slide all around. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and lay this down the best I can. I like to start with one edge, like the bottom edge, and line it up the best I can. And then just carefully go around. The frame is the most important part, so concentrate on the frame. This part that holds the sequins in. And I'm just going to tap with my finger. Okay, once I'm sure that that glue has taken hold of the acetate, I'm going to set my sequins mix on top to give it some weight. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. And while that dries, we will glue our card, or the frame that we cut out in just the plain white cardstock, and we're going to glue that to the foam. Once again, we do this because the foam and acetate do not like to stick together, and this makes our lives easier. So I'm going to start by adding my glue to the back side of this frame piece in just plain cardstock. And I'm going to, as carefully as I can, line this up. On top of my foam. There we go. That's had a minute to dry. I'm going to set this on top. And we're just going to wait for that to dry for a second. Okay. Now we're going to add our sequins. Not that one, but this one. Oh, no. You know what we're going to do? We are going to try to put this in the bottle. Okay. We're going to use our powder tool. Okay. So once you have your foam and cardstock layered up on your base, what I like to do is take my powder tool and go along the inside where the sequins is going to go. So I go along the outside, and then I just sweep lightly across the entire thing. Tap it to get the excess off. And having that baby powder in there will assure that the sequins don't stick to the acetate because it reduces the static that forms from the acetate. At least I did it on the second one, right? Now you know. Okay, so we added our powder, and now we're going to add some of the sequins mix try to get a nice mix of colors and include some of those shaker balls because they're heavier than sequins and they help the sequins move around and make that lovely shaker sound that we all like. Don't want to overdo it. Don't want to add too little either. So here we go. I'm going to spread this out a little bit. And now I'm going to get my glue back. And I'm going to add glue all around this frame very carefully. I like to hold it just with the tip of my finger so that it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to be as careful as I can not to bump it, but I am really clumsy, so forgive me if it happens. I'm just going to start adding my glue in a thin line all the way around, no gaps, so the sequins cannot escape. Because those thin little sequins, trust me, they will find any little escape path they can. And then once one gets through there, it can make your whole shaker open up, and that can be bad when you're mailing a shaker and it opens on in transit. Then it's not so fun for the recipient. Okay, so I have my thin solid line of glue all the way around. I have my acetate adhered to my specialty cardstock, and I'm going to again hold this just with the tip of my finger and line this up the best I can. Like I said, I start with just one side, like here at the bottom, and try to get it as straight as I can. Try not to be too shaky, because this part is the part with the acetate where the glue can get everywhere and make your shaker ugly. And then just gently tap around the frame to get that glue to adhere. We have a little bit of seepage down here, but that's okay because it will eventually dry. I'm going to set this mix on top and wait a minute for that to dry. So I think that completes our tutorial for today. I'm going to go over my notes and see if there's anything I missed. Like any tips that I missed. I don't think so. Yeah, just don't shake it until that glue is completely dry because you don't want your sequin sticking to the inside of it. So that'll do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I will get back with you. I appreciate you watching and I hope this was helpful. Have a great day. Bye.